Sight Unseen is a pretty decent film. It's not perfect, but it's made me really excited to watch the next Emma Fielding mystery. This was released in 2017. It's directed by Douglas Barr, and it stars Courtney Thorne-Smith as Emma Fielding, and I was really looking forward to this for two reasons. One, I really like Courtney Thorne-Smith. Two, I've just finished a pretty terrible Hallmark mystery series, and I was wanting something to be really great, so I went with this one because I liked the sound of it. Emma Fielding is an archaeology professor, and this one, at least, I don't know if the next two, there are only 3 in the series, unfortunately, but I don't know if they all revolve around archaeology, but I'm going to assume so. I'll find out when I get there, but this does mean that she had a valid reason for being involved in this case, and she's working on this dig with her students. She's trying to find evidence of this settlement. And a body is found. And then there are various things that seem to connect her to this crime. And I don't want to say too much more about that. I will say the narrative isn't the most interesting. The crime itself is not that fascinating. The suspects are kind of boring, so it's not the most compelling. But I did like the archaeological aspect. I thought that was something a little bit different. And Emma is a very likeable character, and was also, without giving too much away, did not come across as completely innocent either. I didn't ever think she was at fault, but obviously because she's involved in this, it meant that the police had to look at her a little bit. And I think that made it feel a little bit more realistic and a bit more believable. And I genuinely thought that while the narrative's not the most fascinating, everything felt believable. And that's not always the case with a Hallmark mystery. So I certainly enjoyed a lot of this. Emma as a protagonist, I think, is somebody I'm going to get on with really well for the next 2 films. I didn't like how much of a role her students had in this. I would have rather the focus was more on Emma. It is mostly on her, but the students did have quite an important role to play at times, and I kind of didn't love that, because they're not interesting characters, at least in this particular film. So I don't think the balance is perfect, and the narrative, as I said, isn't the most compelling. But the narrative at least flows well, it's believable, there's nothing specifically wrong with it, it's just not the most interesting. But Emma as a character, I really liked, and I'm, based purely on this film, a little bit sad that there are only 3 of them. I'd be very keen to see what else they could have done with this. As I said, because she is an archaeologist, this does mean that she has a genuine reason to come across, for example, dead bodies. It makes perfect sense. Whereas there are some Hallmark mysteries where the protagonists just don't make any sense, and there's no reason for them to be involved in the cases, but I could actually see this character going really far. So I don't know why there are only 3. Maybe the next 2 are terrible. I don't predict that's going to be the case, though, but we'll find out when we get there. But for now, I thought Sight Unseen was pretty good. Not the most action-packed narrative at all, but we have some likeable characters and an interesting concept with the archaeological aspect nevertheless. And there were a couple of dramatic moments. In fact, there were 2 moments that I loved. I'll talk about those in a moment with a spoiler warning just by way of example. But it's a good film, not perfect, but enough to leave me excited for the next one. So 2 things, very small spoilers. I'm not going to give away who was responsible or anything, but these are still spoilers for things that happen. The first thing I loved was the fire. I thought it was very dramatic and worked very well. Maybe not the most necessary thing to happen, but visually it looked really striking and very well done. And the other thing I loved was the police boat, just because I don't think I'd ever seen a police boat before, and I thought that was pretty cool. So definitely some things in this that I really enjoyed. And I'm generally pretty excited for the next one.